Got it. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm actually going to do two things. One is I wanted to actually mention a new book I got. It's actually Okinawa Karate, The Exquisite Art. It was produced by Classical Fighting Arts, which is one of, I think, the best magazines out there, especially if you like Okinawan Karate. And one of the nice things is it actually comes with the 3 Okinawan stamps. I have them on the side. And this is the book with the cover. And if you're like me and like to save the book cover, you can remove it and you see a nice book. Big thing about this book, which I will tell you, is it is a beautiful book. First off, you see it, and it's, like my girlfriend actually called it, it's a work of art. It is a beautiful book, and it does have a lot of information, especially for the size. You would actually think, okay, well, it's not going to be, but the print's actually pretty good size, and it does have a lot of the stories of the old masters. It also does have some new things that pretty much, it's not that what happened is they retranslated a lot of the old works. And so when you do that and you have people who have more understanding in Japanese and English together, you end up getting a better view of what's happening, of what happened. And there's a lot of stuff in there which I'm not going to mention. If you're interested, I would actually recommend calling the company, Classical Fighting Arts, getting the book. For me, it was a great book. It did have a lot of things that I haven't found in other books I do own. And I do own a lot of books. And so, yeah, like I said, it's great. If you actually go inside, you'll look at the pictures, and the pictures are beautiful. There are pictures that you may have seen somewhere else, but they're a lot more clear in this book than I've ever seen them. Just one thing to actually look at. It does talk about all the old masters, Motobu, Itosu, and Anku. You actually, like I said, as I read it, I found that there were things in there which I hadn't found anywhere else. Certain ideas that people actually wrote about which were unique. And again, it's one of these books where you start looking at the real picture, the whole picture of karate, and you start finding that it's different than what most people were saying. A lot of our karate has been based on rumors. It's based on what someone was once told by someone else. And now we actually are seeing something that's well researched, and you can actually get a lot out of it. There was a story in there which I had read in a lot of other areas, so I figured it'd be kind of nice to talk about. And that is when Matsumura's bones were washed. If you know anything about Okinawan funerals, you actually, from what I've gathered, someone dies, they put them in the crypt. 4 years after, they go to wash the bones. And with Matsumura, the story that they actually said is, when they went to wash his bones 4 years later, they were actually pretty impressed with how held together the body was with the ligaments and tendons. And a lot of people attributed this to karate being an exercise that was maybe strengthened their ligaments. And it did say tendons and ligaments. Chances are it was only the ligaments, because tendons are connecting muscles to bone, and the muscles do degrade relatively quick. Ligaments can actually take various times to degrade. I was reading one study where it actually said that after 50 years, some people still have tendons, ligaments holding a lot of their skeleton together, and you still have the collagen holding together aspects of the body. And that's not going into other unusual things that can happen. For instance, there is a normal process of mummification that can happen because of the calcium, because of maybe it was a colder couple of winters, that it could have actually kept the body from disintegrating. So this is what we do know. We know that people who actually have washed bones before were impressed by how the skeleton was held together. And one of the things that is important is it takes 4 years for someone to do that. And I did actually go look at the half-life of tendons. Mainly, I ended up looking at the half-life of collagen, which is the main protein found in tendons. And the half-life ranged from 2 to 100 years. Usually, most people say about 50 years for tendons and collagen to break down. But it could have happened as quick as 2 years. It could have happened as slow as 100 years. but the idea is it's still 4 years. There should have been some degradation, and so maybe normally they have to play with the ligaments to actually have them break down. Now, we can't really say why the ligaments were not broken down, but we can actually talk about, well, this was something that was different. Could it be a mummification process? It could have. But could it have been that he had more ligaments holding his knees together? And we have to actually go back to what we know about the Matsumura. What we do know is that he was known to have a relatively strong body, really strong build, and practiced karate pretty much every day of his life. Now, we know that collagen synthesis is actually triggered by mechanical stressors, meaning if you do something that puts a little bit of pressure on a tendon, that tendon, the fibroblasts, the cells inside the ligament, will actually start producing more collagen, making it a stronger ligament. And so if you actually think of stuff like Naihanchi, a lot of times we do stuff and it actually does cause a pull on some of our ligaments. Now, there is a difference between ligaments and tendons. Tendons, if you want to strengthen them, you're going to work out the muscles. Ligaments, you're going to actually have to do mechanical stressors. Not too much, because if you stress it too much, well, you can end up having other tears. So when we actually look at katas like Naihanchi, when we look at the cat stance, for instance, also, we actually can see that, yes, we do use certain areas of our legs which kind of put pressure on the ligaments. So could these exercises have caused the ligaments to become bigger? The answer is yes, especially if done before the age of 18. One of the things I was finding is after 18, we actually find that ligaments don't strengthen as much as they did before. Why? I don't know. It may be that the different growth hormones that are going on could actually cause an increase in tendon strength. But again, if we actually look at what the records of karate tell us, many of these gentlemen who were high-end karateka started training before the age of 15, which means they would actually be doing exercises that build up their ligaments before it actually became harder to strengthen them. So could it be the exercise that made his ligaments strong enough that they held the skeleton in place? They could. Could it have been some other aspect? Yes. Could it just be legend? And that's actually one of the things that could happen. We a lot of times are not relying on pictures. We're not relying on documented writings. Like I said, this book is actually unique in that it does have a lot of the documentation, especially in the back. And so one of the big things that we do have is we have to actually look at the legends and look at our science behind it and see, could this be possible? Now, for a long time, we've actually been having books trying to tell us the history of karate. A lot of these were actually dealing with translations of translations. Now we're actually getting books like, I'm going to point it out again, this one, or Andre Cross' book, which are going to the original sources and trying to find what's really going on. A lot of these people who are translating today are better at translating than the people who are translating even 50 years ago. Reason is people have more exposure to the language. People actually have more exposure to other people. And so you end up getting a more complete look at the book. There are some stuff that people will say, oh, uke means block. Well, no, it doesn't mean block. It means to receive. And then when you actually start looking at the things that were written, for instance, you can actually say, okay, this is what this was intended because of the translation, someone who applies it, and the pictures that we have. Now, that to me means that we're actually in a really interesting time for martial arts in general, karate in particular, because we can get all these new informations coming to us from a lot of different areas. The question I would ask is, what is next? I mean, we can actually continue with looking at the past. We can look at the history. There's a lot of books that haven't been translated, but eventually they will be. And we still will have these legends. And some people will dismiss the legends as just legends. They didn't happen. But could they? And the only way we can actually answer if they could or not is by looking at the basic science behind it. These basic sciences, by the way, are considered anatomy, physiology, microbiology, some people would put kinesiology in it, biomechanics, pathology, and injury. Now, when you get all these things together, you can then end up actually going into more of the orthopedics, the vascular surgery, the problems that happen, and we can actually come out with a new scientific thing. Could this happen? Well, if we actually can decide, yes, this could happen, then maybe it did. Especially if the stories that we get match clinical presentations. Right now, there's very few people who are doing the could this happen, but we are getting a lot of great books. I'm actually going to show it again one more time. Really great books on the history of karate. Every year they're getting better. And so I know, quick video, I do plan to continue doing the bones. I'm going to do the spinal column next, and then probably just the ribs and sternum, and then the skull is going to take a long time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a nice day, and if you want to support the channel, please consider buying one of the 2 books. I will also, as someone has mentioned, I do plan to write a clinical anatomy book, which will actually be functional anatomy, where anyone should be able to use it and be able to interpret their katas and stories by themselves. If it's something you are interested in, let me know, and I'll let you guys know more about the project. Hope you have a nice day.